லாஸ்ட் லாஸ்ட் கிளாஸ் நீங்கள் மட்டும்தான் வந்தீங்களாம்மா? நீங்கள் மட்டும்தான் வந்துருக்கீங்களா? அவனுக்கு தான். சரி. The core the determinants of ethics. ನಮ್ಮ ನೆರಿಗಳು, that means what determines the ethical actions. நம் செயலில் உள்ள அறநெறிகள் அதை நிர்ணயிப்பது. What determines the ethical actions? What determines the ethical actions? There are throughout the life we are being influenced by ethical factors. The determinant factors of ethical actions. One is the individual factor. One is the individual factor. Then it is the cultural environment or the nation that he lives. Then the third one is the organizational factors. The organization that he is associated with. Or the three determining factors of ethics in an individual action. Say individual factor is associated with this experience of learning, education, the experience of his family, the family grown up, பிறந்து வளர்ந்த குடும்ப சூழ்நிலை, குடும்பத்தில் டெய்லி that means the individual imitate the elders' behavior. If the family is known for the violence, abusing, ill respect in daily basis, the individual is also induced to do that. That is upbringing, that is in family and kin group. Then education, the education that he is exposed to. Then his personal life experience, the lessons he learned from the life, real-time experience. So this determines the ethics in his actions. Okay, அவருடைய செயல், அவருடைய இண்டிவிஜுவல் பர்சனாலிட்டி, அவருடைய பர்சனாலிட்டி ஃபேக்டர் ரொம்ப முக்கியம். எப்படி, எந்த சூழ்நிலையில் வளர்ந்தார், அவருடைய கல்வி, அப்புறம் அவருடைய பர்சனல் வேல்யூஸ், அவருடைய தனிப்பட்ட பண்புகள், அப்புறம் அவருடைய வாழ்நாள் அனுபவங்கள், இது நிர்ணயிக்கும் அவருடைய செயல், பர்சனாலிட்டி. தென் cultural environment of a nation. Culture, a cultural environment of a nation. One is the norms, the societies, the norms of the society. Society. இப்போ மிடில் ஈஸ்டர்ன் சொசைட்டி காலையில் வெளியில் போனாங்கன்னா சமைக்க மாட்டோம், சமைக்க தேவையில்லை, திருப்பி வர்றது நிச்சயம். அன்சர்டனிட்டி, அன்பிரடிக்டபிலிட்டி, எப்போ குண்டு விழும், எவன் குண்டை வைப்பான், ஓகே, பாகிஸ்தான் குண்டு வைப்பான், இதுக்கு என்ன நடக்கும்னு தெரியாது. இந்த சூழ்நிலையில் ஒருத்தன் வாழும்போது அவனுடைய தனிப்பட்ட இயல்புகள், பதறல், அது போய் செயல்படும் போது அவனுடைய செயலில் அது வெளிப்படும். ஸோ தட் இஸ் த சோஷியல் நார்ம்ஸ், ஹிஸ்டாரிக்கல் லாஸ், தென் த கலெக்டிவ் ஐடென்டிட்டி ஆஃப் கண்ட்ரி. இப்போ ஜப்பான் ஒரு தேசம் ஒழுக்கத்துக்கு பேர் போனோம். ஒரு இடத்துல ஓடி போய் லைன் நின்று தான் டிக்கெட் வாங்கணும். ஓகே, ஒரு இடத்துல ஒரு டிக்கெட் வாங்கணும்னா கூட லைன் நின்று, என்ன அவசரம் இருந்தாலும் லைன் நின்றுவான். ஜப்பான் டிராஃபிக் ரூல்ஸ் கரெக்டாக ஃபாலோ பண்ணுவோம், டிராஃபிக் ரூல்ஸ். இதே நீங்கள் நேபாளில் டூரிஸ்ட் அடிக்கடி இறந்து போயிடுவாங்க. நேபாள் என்னன்னா ரூல்ஸ் ஒழுங்காக ஃபாலோ பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. ஒரு 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 ரிவர் ரைடு, ஒரு படகு, ஒரு 10 பேர், இப்போ மூணாறுல இருக்கு, 10 பேர் ஏற்றணும்னா 50 பேர் ஏற்றிட்டு போவோம். ரூல்ஸ், அந்த ரூல்ஸ் என்ஃபோர்ஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ஆள் இல்லை, பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. ஸோ அந்த இடத்துல இருந்து வரவங்க அது நிர்ணயம். தென் ஆர்கனைசேஷன், that is the organization that the individual is associated. Organization in that leadership. If a leader is corrupt, okay, ஒரு தலைவர் ஊழல் லஞ்சம் வாங்கினாருன்னா a green signal for the subordinates. Okay, organization. Then peer group, or கூட வேலை செய்கிறோம். இன்ஸ்டிடியூஷனல் கல்ச்சர், அந்த ஆர்கனைசேஷன் எப்படி வேலை செய்யுது. இஸ்ரோ வேலை செய்யுது, மெட்ராஸ் கார்பரேஷன் வேலை செய்யுது, ரெண்டும் ஒன்றா. சென்னை கார்பரேஷன் போய் பாருங்க. சென்னை கார்பரேஷனில் செவரு வச்சா கூட ஒரு இது பேசுவாங்க, செவத்தை கை வச்சா கூட பணம் கேட்கணும், துட்டு கொடு, ஊழல். ISRO. So the way that organization functions, these are all determines the ethical behaviors. Okay, these are all determines an ethical behavior. How it is expressed. It is expressed in the form of personality ethics, situational ethics, and the social ethics. Personality ethics, the factors that determines a person's ethics. How? No, late now. நீங்கள் லேட் ஆனாலும் ஐ மீன் யூ போத் உட்காருங்க. நீங்கள் 2 பேர் லேட் ஆனாலும் வரலன்னாலும் எனக்கு இன்ஃபார்ம் பண்ணு. ஓகே. உங்கள் 2 பேருக்கு தான் உட்காந்து காலையில் உட்காந்து போகிறோம். ஓகே. இவங்களுக்கு அப்புறமா கூட பார்த்துக்கலாம். See, the determinant factors of ethics in an individual action. What are the factors that determines the ethics? The ethical aspects of an individual behavior is determined by the 3 important factors throughout his life. Throughout his life, an individual's actions have that flavor of ethics. The 3 determinant factors that influences the ethical actions of an individual. One is the individual factor. The individual, that means the personality factor. The individual personality. The individual personality is not of a momentous period of time. A individual personality is the outcome of his experience and learning, right from his family. Family is a nursery of ethics. Family is a core nursery of ethics that influences the individual action. It is the family. The nature of family determines the nature of individual personality. If a family known for the members of mistrust, members of violence, members of abusing others, that would reflect in the individual, personality. Then the education that the individual exposed to, with the education forms the baseline for the individual approach in the society. Then life experience determines the individual. See, for example, you see Anwar Sadat, an Egyptian president. Anwar Sadat, an Egyptian president. An Egyptian president known for his entire career of hatred for the Israel. A person right from his young age known for his enmity to Israel. And Anwar Sadat has to undergo the experience in a prison, and known for his political experience. And this life experience able to script and re-script a life experience of ourselves as an individual. Our life experience able to script and re-script. You say Anwar Sadat, was the first president of Egypt to start a friendly relations with Israel. Friendly relations with Israel. Egypt was the first Arab nations to have the friendly relations with Israel. So it is the life experience that an individual undergone influences his ethics that he upheld. Then the second one is culture, the cultural environment of a nation. The cultural environment of a nation. You take the India as a nation. India as a nation has undergone a socio-cultural environment of constitutional moralities, undergone the socio-cultural environment of constitutional moralities. You see, if a person is detained, he may have the remedy in the court naturally. It is a naturalized future in India. This cannot be expected in Pakistan. You say if a person arrested, detained, if a person missing here, in India would go to police station. But in Pakistan, they will go to the mullah. They will go to the particular mullah. So it is because the nation here came from the experience of freedom struggle, able to cherish a generation with the principles of non-violence, able to generate a generation with the principle of non-violence, then with the principle of the liberties, the individual liberties. So it is the cultural environment of the nation, as the nation is known for its influence. Then organizational culture, that is the persons associated with, the organization in which the person associated organizations, a person's associated, known for the internal rules that shapes, that molds the daily behavior of the person. Organization means it depends on leadership, You see, Prime Minister's office functions with the exemplary work culture, because a leader don't add the strain of corruption. The cabinet, that present cabinet that exists for 12 years is not accused, even by the opposition party, is not accused with the corruption. But this is not the case. This was not the case of the UPA government, known for successive corruptions, every year corruption, as the Colgate scheme, 2G scam, or the Augusta Westland helicopters. So it depends upon the leadership and depends upon the institutional cultures. The motive of the institution, they're all molds an individual that determines the ethical behavior of the individual. How the ethics of that individual is being expressed. With these factors influenced, the human ethics that is being expressed in the actions of the individuals could be categorized as the personality ethics. The personality ethics, that the individual actions are being influenced by certain principles that stay consistent or constant in all the situation he confronts. in all the situation in conference, in the private life, in the administration. In the administration, that means all the situation a conference and in all scenario. Then situational ethics. The situational ethics, say personality ethics is the character driven. The individual character is sculpted by his experience of personality, nation, and organization. That is the character driven. Whereas the situational ethics is the contextual driven. Contextual. It is the context driven. Context driven. Situational ethics is the context in which the individual associated with. It is the context driven, versus situational ethics deals with the context that the individual role in the context of the public meeting, in the context, especially in the administration, in the context of crisis management. In the context of the crisis management, the ethics by which he is influenced serves as the point of operation, serves as the anchor point of the operation. Then social ethics, that means a community driven. Personality ethics is character driven. Situational ethics is contextual driven. And the social ethics is the community driven. A community driven is guided by the community based on concurring to the community laws. So these are the factors. These are the factors that determines the ethics. These are the factors that determines the ethics. These are the way in which the ethics expressed itself. Ethics expressed itself as the personality ethics, situational ethics, and the societal ethics. Then ethics in private and public relations. Ethics in private and public relations. Ethics in the private and the public relations apparently seems to be two different domains. Two different domains of the individual behavior. Ethics of the private relations. Ethics of private relations is associated with his family, associated with his family, associated with his skin group, associated with his skin group, associated with his peer group, associated with his community, associated with his community. That is life and behavior is associated with the social relations of the family relations, kinship relations, peer group, community, nation, community, as well as the nation. These are all these behaviors of this real life of the private relations are being functioned in informal, being functioned with the informal norms, which are being in function with the informal norms. It is a natural, and it being functioned with the intimate relations, with the intimate day-to-day, face-to-face, the interpersonal relations, day-to-day, face-to-face, and interpersonal relations. It is not based on reciprocity, Your family never nurtured you, never nourished you with the expectations, expecting your obligations in reciprocal. It is not based on, there is no formal reciprocity. It is built on affections. It is built on the affections and emotional bondings. There exists the emotional bondings. It is built on the affections, and there exists the emotional bondings. and it is operated with the locus of internal control, with the mechanism of internal control. It is the internal control mechanism. If an individual person deviates in his behavior, it would be controlled by his family members. It is the internal control mechanism. Whereas you take his life in the public relations, you take the life in the public relations. The individual life is the public relations, unlike the private life. Public relation means his life in the organization, his life in the organization, his life in the organization, his life in administration, his life in the administration. That means his socio-cultural life, his life in the society, his life in the informal society, which is based on the formal rules, and some expected norms of behavior, It was the rule-bound, a formal system. It is built on the principle of equality, and there exists a reciprocity in every features of the life. There exists reciprocity in every features of the life, in which the mechanism of control is the external. It is the external mechanism in the form of law, in the form of enforcement agencies, law. That seems to be the two type. This represents a two type. The two type of relations. That means in private life, his life should be based on the bondings of love and honesty as a core engine of trust and transparency. Then private life is expected to have the dedications and sacrifice for his kin members, for his family members. And the private life is expected with truthfulness, decency, respect to the elders, and the generational ties are being maintained. So this seems to be a contrast. Our life represents contrast in domain. When contrast in domain, when an individual going from the private to the public relations, there he deals with certain discrepancy, Murangal, certain discrepancy. See, the private relations were based on loyalty. When the same loyalty cannot be applied in the public relations. If you applied the loyalty to the son, to the father, affections to the son, in the governance, it may lead to nepotism. In which the private relations known for affection leads to favoritism. Private relations known for affection may leads to the favoritism. So it needs an adjustments. A individual ethical life is based on adjustments through modifications and moderations. The adjustments through modifications and the moderation. By that, the private ethos in the private relations shall reinforce. Ethos in the private relations shall reinforce the public relations. Shall reinforce the public relations. Ethos in the private relations shall reinforce the public relations. Public relations, because the core features of the public relations, is formal, external, operated by the external controls, rules and regulations, formal, operated by the external controls, the rules and regulations in the present, in the present decade, there emerged a blur in the exclusivity of the public and the private relations. The present decade led to the blurring of differences between private and the public relations. The blurring of differences between private and the public relations because the character is monolithic. And not of difference. A person having rotten character in the private relations cannot establish his behavioral integrity in public. Character is monolithic, and character cannot differentiate. No differences between public and the private relations. No differences between the public and the private relations. An individual is corrupt in the private relations. Would be corrupt. It is induced to corruption in the public relations. Then the second, there is no switch on. It is not switch in the ethical, switch in the character or the ethical, the switch in the ethical futures. No switch in the ethical futures, or no switch in the character. An individual cannot be a man of integrity and honesty up to 10 a.m. when switched to corrupt from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Then again he returns home and become honest in 10 a.m. So character is not switch. And character is not monolithic. Character is not switch. And character is not monolithic. Character is not switch. Character is not monolithic. Because the blur there is the differences between the private and public relations is blurred. Because in the 21st century, because of the reasons. One is the impact of digital public square. Present day, in the digital world of the present day, is known for the individual functions with the cellular phones, with the internet, in which his activities in the office is same as is having his connections with his activities in home. So the public life and the private life differences became blurred. The empathy and character is not a switch. Empathy and character is not a switch. And character is an indivisible whole. Character is the indivisible whole, and it is not a switch. It is Nolan committee recommendations. Nolan committee recommendations of Nolan in United Kingdom. Nolan committee recommendations in the United Kingdom called as the committee of ethical standards in public life. Committee of ethical standards in public life. Ethical standards in the public life. The committee was appointed by the Prime Minister John Major. It was the John Major Committee in 1994. When the United Kingdom undergoing a socio-economic crisis of the corruption in the public and the corruption among the common people, cynicism of the common people, and corruption among the parliamentary members, in which the Nolan Committee came out with the recommendations. One is the ethical expectations. Nolan Committee stated that certain human values that has to be maintained in the public life. Certain human values to be maintained in the public life. One is the objectivity. Then integrity, objectivity, integrity, honesty, then accountability, respect to law, and diligence, are the indispensable values, human values to be maintained by the individual. Second, committee recommended the ethical expectations in public office, ethical expectations in the public life or in the public organizations. Ethical expectations in the public organizations should be codified. Until then, the public offices, public organizations functions with certain conventions, expected conventions, but committee recommended the necessity of codification of ethical expectations. Then the third, committee also recommended the institutionalization of the code of ethics, and the code of conduct, institutionalization of the code of ethics and the code of conduct in the public establishments. Committee also recommended the induced measures of inculcating the ethics, in the form of ethical workshop, in the form of the ethical workshops, in the form of the ethical evaluation, ethical evaluation for the public servants, ethical workshops, ethical evaluation, and the ethical reinforcement measures for the public servants as the important one to promote the ethics in the public, on the ethics in the public. So, in which in the historical paradigm in the 21st century, the difference between the public relations and the private relations became blurred. Public relations and the private relations became blurred, in which there is a necessity, there is a shift. The shift in the modern 21st century reality, in which the private relations and the ethics of the private relations should have reinforcement, the reinforcement in the acts of the public relations, reinforcement in the acts of the public relations. So this seems to be the ethics in the public relations and the private relations. Ethics in the public relations and the private relations. The factors influences the ethics, ethical actions. Then the second one is ethics in public and the private relations. Ethics in public and private relations. Then go for the values. Go for the values. Human values. What is a value? What is a value? Defining the value. Values are the core and certain core and enduring belief systems. Certain core and enduring beliefs. Certain core enduring beliefs, certain core enduring beliefs and principles, core and enduring beliefs and principles, and the principles that are imbibed with the individual, That means values are the core enduring principles that guides the individual. It guides the individuals. It guides the individuals in his actions, in his thought, attitude, and actions. It guides the individual in thought, attitude, and actions. Values are different from moralities. Values are different from the moralities. Different from the morality. Morality is a code, a personal code of making decisions. You are honest. That is value. You are honest. That is value. But you decide with the code of action that you shall not. You prohibit false. You will speak only the truth, even in the hard circumstances. That is morality. Morality is the code. And is the code of making decisions of actions. Morality is of individual that enables the values to act. Moralities are the individuals. Values are the anchor points. Values are the anchors. A man with a particular value of honesty means in any action, he shall not fall. He shall not fall as an anchor to the ship. Values are the principles, enduring principles, the core principles that decide, that determines a man to, to function in its own axis as like the anchor to the ship that secures the ship from secures the ship from submerging, secures the ship to come out to the shore, in which values are anchor, whereas the moralities are compass. Moralities are compass, as like the mariner compass, which gives the directions to the journey of life, Whereas the ethics is a system, a systemic framework. Ethics is a systemic framework of making decisions based on these values and moralities. It is a system of framework. It is a system of framework of decision. It's a system of framework of categorizing good or bad, categorizing the good or bad. Yes, you say the values operates in the thought process. Values operate in the thought process, in the levels of intelligence and emotions, whereas the moralities operate in the mental construct, and the ethics operate as the physical action, as the Buddhism states. Chitta, sila, prajna, intellectual, prajna, intellectual process, that is the right wisdom in which the values associated. Then the chitta, mental process, right thought in which the morality is associated, and the right action, that is sila, as the Buddhism. That is the difference. What are the characteristic features of a value? What are the characteristic features of a value? What are the characteristic features of a value? What are the characteristic features? It is ingrained. Ingrained with the individual. It exists in its emotional levels. Say, suppose a person traveling faster in the two-wheeler, suppose about the encounters with a puppy crossing, encounters with the infant lying in the road, immediately applies the brake at all cost, because his value is ingrained to value the life of that puppy or life of that infant. That is, value is ingrained. It is ingrained, known for the guidance as the guidance of being a compass, a compass as like the mariner compass. It gives the directions of the individual life. Value is known for dynamic as well as stable, dynamic and stability. People's value may change. Anwar Sadat, known for his hatred to the Israel until he became the president, until a certain experience, then transferring himself. An atheist, when confronted with certain events, may become theist. That is dynamic. The values of the past generation is not of the present generation. The past generation known for the values of collectivity, collective interest. The present generations known for the values of individual interest, individual interest. It is dynamic, unstable, dynamic, unstable. Values are relative. Values are relative. Values are relative. A relative in nature. A relative. The values are relative to the social group in the community levels. In the community levels, the values, the value towards the cow is different from the value towards the beef. From community to community changes, community to community changes. That is, it is relative. Values of the past generations are different from the values of the present, values of the present generations. Then how the values are inculcated? How that values are inculcated? The values are inculcated to the individual with the through with the three crucial phases, three crucial phases of his life. The three crucial phases of the life. One is values are inculcated by the family, inculcated by the family. How family inculcate the values of the individual? Because the family is the primary educative institution, primary educated institution. An individual by birth is a clay, and it is the primary educational primary family is the primary educational institutions in which the values are inculcated in three forms. One is cognitive settings. Cognitive settings. The cognitive settings, it is the family that establishes a functional system in default, a default operating system, for an individual. That means a default system of behaviors. A default system of behaviors. That is the cognitive settings. The cognitive settings in which certain basic values are being inculcated. A family, in the family of violence, excess become the value. In the family of compassion becomes value. Compassion becomes the value. Then belief system. It is the family. It is the family that inculcate the individual beliefs. The belief system. If a family is peaceful, family is abundant, family is sufficient with resources, family is peaceful, so individual cultivate the value of peace. The value of peace. If it is opposite, the individual known for. So it is the security and certainty depends on the family. Security and certainty as a belief that the individual cultivates. Then enculturation, all the behaviors, all the primary behaviors, that the individual are inculcated with the family. So family is the nursery. Family is the nursery of value attainments. Nursery of the value attainments. Then the education. How education? Schoolings. Education inculcate the value in the form of one, transmission and preservation of the values. A transmission and the preservation of values. Education transmits certain ethical values. Ethical values means the values categorized as good. The values categorized as the good. It is the ethical values of the human excellence. Then the second, it is the education that built up the depth of character of the individual, the depth of character of the individual. See, a child involved in play, involved, he may win or loses. By winning, he delays gratification and accept the loss with the humility, with the honor, the grit, the honor, the responsibility of a teamwork, responsibility of the teamwork. Then compliance with the discipline, right from his childhood, in which the depth of that molds the character of the individual. That molds. See, character is nothing but certain standards of values, expressed in the individual. Then the individual in the education is being induced with the principle of equality, and the respect with others. That is the social justice, in which the values are being inculcated. Then the third important factor that in which the individual able to inculcate with the values, the third important factor, that is the triad of the social life. That means the government, market, and the mass media. Government, market, and the mass media. The government rules, government agencies forms a baseline of compliance to law and justice. Government law prescribes the individual for a qualifications. Government prescribes certain values that the individual should comply. It is the compliance. Then the mass media able to make the individual to get inculcate with the cultural priorities. A responsible media promotes the values of human rights, promotes the values of a life of integrity without the corruption. The narrative of the social media is important. If the media gives priority to the sensationalism, the individual value is much prone to sensational aspect. You see the death of the cinema persons are being highlighted by the media. The death of the cinema persons highlighted. That is sensationalism. So it is dependent. Then the market rewards. Market is an agency of financial rewards to the society. It defines, inculcates the values of hard work, competence, and the wealth. So these were the three domains that in which the human values are inculcated. In which the human values are inculcated, in which the 10 important human values, which are indispensable for an individual in the public life, in administration and governance. The 10 important values as the compassion, honesty, respect to law and others, justice, responsibility, empathy, tolerance, gratitude, forgiveness, gratitude, forgiveness, and accountability, forgiveness and the accountability that defines not only the individual but also a society. A society of vibrant values. How a society of vibrant values exists. A vibrant society known for the values. One is a community, solidarity, harmonious solidarity of the community. A harmonious solidarity of the community. You see, the individuals acts more for the collective identity, from moving from me to we. Then a vibrant society known for the highest values of empowerment, with the dignity and identity of vulnerable sections. With the empowerment, with the dignity and identity of the vulnerable sections. A vibrant society known for the highest values exists with the people's role of being steward to the environmental sustenance. People are aspiring to protect the nature, and a vibrant society known for the highest values of honoring the cultural heritage, and the cultural traditions for the harmony, So this seems to be the values. What is the value? Then what are the determinants or inculcating factors and agencies of the value? The characteristic features of the value. A value of a vibrant societies. A vibrant societies has the values of unity and solidarity, environmental stewardship, empowerment of the vulnerable sections, and the respect to art and the cultural heritage. You see, the values are relative, I told. It could be studied as individual values, then public values, and the ethical values. Individual values, public values, and the ethical values. Individual values, that means 10 universal values. The 10 universal values. Then public values. What is a public value? Public value is an appraisal of what government invested and sustained on behalf of the people. Public value is an appraisal of what government invested and sustained on behalf of the people. You see, the sustained on the behalf. Public value is an assessment of the government. All the public sector enterprises having one objective of promoting public value. One objective of promoting the public value. One objective of promoting the public values. Public values are not singular or not exclusive. Public values are not singular and not exclusive. Public values are plural. Plural. And sometimes public values are contradictory. Public values are contradictory. You see, mercy as a value contradict with justice. Contradict with the justice. The mercy value as a sometimes it is contradictory and sometimes it leads to reinforcement. Reinforcement. That means integrity. Integrity reinforces the honesty. Honesty. Integrity reinforces the honesty. The nature of public value exists in India. The nature of public value exists in India. The public values exist in India in the form of deficit, in the form of deficits, in the form of the deficit of the public value. The deficit in the public value due to the problem of corruption. Due to the problem of corruption. Second, lack of accountability. Lack of accountability. Third was deficit. Third one is the lack of evaluation mechanisms. Lack of evaluation mechanisms. What's the impact of value deficit in? What is the impact of deficit in public value? Impact of deficit in public value. Impact. One is it leads to trust deficit. Trust deficit. The people trust with the public establishment is questioned. People trust with the public establishment is questioned. Trust deficit. Then second, it leads to malgovernance. Malgovernance. Deficit in the public values becomes vicious. Public values, deficit in public values motivate corruption. Corruption motivate the deficit in public values. What are the instances of the deficit in the public values today? What are the instances of the deficit in the public values today? The instances, one, the leakage of the NEET question papers, the leakage of the NEET question and the question of and the examination questions, the leakages. Then second one is accidents, fire accidents, building collapses in the metropolitan cities of India. Fire accidents, building collapses in the metropolitan cities of India. Because of the deficit of the public value. Then the third one is instances in the failure in last mile deliveries. Failure in the last mile deliveries, in which some of the vulnerable sections are being excluded. That means lack of access to them. Failure in the last mile delivery, where the instances of starvation, death, hunger, then the malnutrition, the condition of malnutrition in India, that is the expression of deficit in the public values. Then what are the government measures? What are the ethical measures taken by the government to promote public values? Ethical measures taken by the government to promote the public values. One is the principle of minimum government with maximum governance. Principle of minimum government with the maximum governance. Then transparency in government procurements. GEM portal. Transparency in government procurement, GEM portal. Then citizen charters, ombudsman schemes. Then third, value inculcation for public service, Mission Karma Yogi. Value inculcation for public service, Mission Karma Yogi. The ARC Commission report, the second Administrative Reform Commission report, the second Administrative Reform Commission reports, the 10th report that deals with the ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission. The 10th report of the ARC deals with the measures to promote foundational values in the public service, in which ARC Commission highlights the 5 important values to be carried out in the public service. 5 important values. One is objectivity. That means objectivity. The decisions in the public service to be taken with the neutrality based on the data's laws and evidence, based on the facts. Second, empathy of recognizing the hardships of the vulnerable sections. Then third, probity. That means the public offices should exist with incorruptible conducts. Then impartiality is the principle of political neutrality for a civil servant. And third, the concerns for the citizen, concerns for the community, and the good for the institution. But the second Administrative Reform Commission highlighted that is the public values. That's the public value. Then ethical value. What is the ethical value? Ethical value are the human values that are categorized as ethically good. The human values that are categorized as ethically good. Ethical values are the characteristic features of the ethical values. They are universal, that is exist, that is valuable for all the social group. Honesty is universal. Integrity is universal. Compassion is universal. Then consistency, it should exist in all the events of the life. Study it. Those are all the values that are consistently exist as values across the generations, across the time. across the time. Then objectivity, that means not influenced by any bias or of the self-interest, and those should be a guiding principles. These are the futures of the ethical values. There is a consensus that there exists. Every individual should act with the four cardinal values. The four cardinal values for a spirited social relations. Four cardinal values for a spirited social relations. The four cardinal values in administration. One is justice. Then fairness. Then benevolence and compassion. Benevolence. Respecting autonomy as the four cardinal values that the individual has to carry out in his life, in public life and the private life and administration. Why a civil servant needs ethical values? Why a civil servant needs to be followed with the values of justice, fairness? What is the essentiality of administration? Yes, and the ethical values are indispensable for the administration on the grounds one, it humanizes the administration system. It humanizes the administrative system. When the administration is performed with the mechanical laws, in which in exclusive, where it is the ethical values that gives administration with a life as an organic system, acts in benevolence to the people. Then second, ethical values are essential for the administration, especially in the use of discretionary powers. The discretionary powers which are not codified, to be act with the conscience. Then ethical values is important for inclusivity in administration. Inclusivity in administration is very much essential in the 21st century. Very much essential in the 21st century. That is the public values, ethical values. The values are dynamic. Values may change across the generations. Values are relative from people to people. Name any four values of India. Name any four values that are distinctive to India. Any four values that are distinctive to India. Any values that are distinctive to Indian civilization. The distinctive values of India could be stated with the principle of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam exists as an ideal in the philosophies, in the literature, in the wisdom of Indian thoughts as a distinctive ideal. Then second, any distinctive ideal of the Indian civilization, ahimsa, non-violence as a distinctive ideal that the Indian civilization nurtured with. Non-violence. Then the Indian civilization's value of Aditi Devo Bhava. Aditi Devo Bhava. Recognizing others, recognizing the strangers with hospitality, with the generosity. Aditi Devo Bhava, the motto of Indian tourism sector. Then the distinctive value of India, Sarvadharma Sambhav, harmonious coexistence of the faith. Harmonious coexistence of the faith. Then the distinctive value of India could be stated with tolerance. Tolerance as a distinctive value. Tolerance as the distinctive value proven in the history. So values are distinctive from society to society. Society to society, nation, civilization to the civilization. Not only that, the values may change across the generations. What are the contrasted values? What are the values of contrast of older generations and the present generation of India? What were the distinctive values of yester generations? Distinctive values of older traditional generation of India, traditional values of Indian past. What are the traditional values of the Indian past? The traditional values of the Indian past. One is the collective interest. One is the collective interest. Collective identity and collective interest. Because of the role of joint families, the jointed future of the family. Role of the jointed future of the family. Then the second one is the second of the traditional values emphasized on environmental sustenance. Environmental sustenance, where the traditional Indian civilization honored environment, rivers, mountains as divine. Rivers, mountains as the divine. Then third, the traditional values of India. The traditional values of India known for compassion and solidarity. Compassion and solidarity. Compassion and the solidarity as the traditional values. Then traditional values emphasized on the spiritual, emphasized on the spiritual motives, the spiritual liberations, spirituality of the soul, the spirituality of the soul. These are all the traditional values, some of the distinctive traditional values of India. Traditional values of India emphasized on balance, the middle way path, emphasized on the balance, the Madhyamika path, the middle way path. See, these traditional values undergone the greater change, the impact. What are the factors of change on the traditional values of India? What are the factors of change? The factors of change. One is the forces of modernization. The forces of modernization, industrialization, and the industrialization, forces of modernization, industrialization, and urbanization. Then the second one is the 21st century impact was of the globalization. The impact of globalization in which the present values in contrast to the traditional values. The present values in contrast to the traditional values. These factors, the impact of globalization has made an impact of change in two levels. One is in the thought process, in thinking, a thinking and attitude, the thought and attitude. The thought and attitude now became individual centric due to the impact of globalization. Now it became the individual centric. Then second one is perspective. One is the thinking. Second one is the perspective. Perspective was due to unlimited opportunities of the globalization, unlimited opportunities, and the disruptive opportunities are disruptive. One technological changes, then the professional changes, technological changes. So in thinking process, in the perspective, it led to change in values. Now the traditional values are known for collective interest. Now is individual interest. Individual interest, because breakup of joint families into nucleated household, individual interest, the individual life. Then the second one is the traditional one is known for the gratification. Now the process, unlimited opportunities resulted in endless exploration of jobs, exploration of qualification. A person is not limiting himself with one degree, with the one program or one skill. Open-ended skills. That is the endless exploration of oneself. Then third, the traditional are known for promoting the values of materialism and consumerism that defied sustenance, environmental sustenance. Then fifth, the present values as promoted the spirit of, not spirituality, the spirit of competitions. The spirit of competitions and the selections. One who known for excess is known for the selection, known for the success. That is the difference between the traditional and the values, the change of values. So this seems to be the aspect of values. What is value? How the value differ from the morality and the ethics. Then how values are inculcated. Then human values of individual and the ethical values, individual values and public values, ethical values, the values of ethical value deficit, ARC recommendations, ethical values deficit, ARC recommendations, then the value evaluation of the traditional values and the individual values, evaluation of the traditional values and the individual values. So this seems to be the way in which the human values are being studied. Now, the way of studying this ethics and the values, that means approach, different approaches for studying the ethics and the values, different approaches for studying the ethics and the values could be evaluated with the acts. Our life is full of acts and the events. Could be evaluated with the acts. The act is performed by the actor, who performed, Saber. Then action. Then the result. Action and the result, in which various theories are being conceptualized. The theories that are associated with the actor in the levels of evaluating actor, called as the theory of virtue ethics. The theory of virtue ethics. An approach, the theory of virtue ethics. The theory of the virtue ethics. Then action, evaluating the action, could be studied with the theory, with the theory of action called as deontological ethics. Then teleological ethics. Then contractarian ethics. Contractarian ethics. Then it was the theory of justice, ethics of the theory of justice. Ethics of the theory of justice. First one is the virtue ethics. The virtue ethics, it was conceptualized by Aristotle in his work called the Nicomachean Ethics. That Aristotle stated a ethical act can be evaluated as ethical is being performed by an actor with virtues. Performed by an actor with the virtues. Aristotelian virtue ethics highlights the four cardinal virtues that a man should possess and should display in his action. The four cardinal virtue. One is justice. Then the second one is the temperament. Second one is the temperament. Then the third one is the courage. And the fourth very important one that Aristotle states, that is the wisdom. Wisdom as the highest echelon of the ethics. Wisdom is universal. And to him, wisdom is a stage of ethical excellence. Wisdom is a stage of ethical excellence. Any act of the individual should display these virtues A ethical life should be conferred to the doctrine of means. A doctrine of mean. A mean is an act, is an act of positioning in between the excess and the lackness. Doctrine of mean is an act of middle way, a middle position between, for example, it is between cowardice and courage, between cowardice and the courage. Aristotle idealized a life of eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is the life of excellence, a life of ethical excellence. A individual life is the life of ethical excellence, a stage of highest happiness. The stage of the highest happiness, a life of ethical excellence on the stage of highest happiness. You see, the virtue ethics would be applied in evaluating the individual actions, evaluating the individual actions of a public servant, individual actions of a public servant in odd circumstances of delivering the public welfare. That means enabling a old aged individual to have access to the welfare programs. The examples of the virtue ethics could be stated with the Antodaya as the poverty alleviation program, as the intervention programs of the government of India. Intervention program of the government of India is being operated through the public distribution system. The objective of Antodaya is to secure the food security for the extremely vulnerable sections of the population. The objective is to prohibit the hunger. Objective is to prohibit the hunger to the extremely vulnerable section of the population. Antodaya is being implemented in the form of a free food grains of 30 kg to the families of extremely poor, and the families of the vulnerable sections like the aged, diseased, disabled, aged, diseased, and the visible can be evaluated with the act of virtues of the state, state wisdom of public welfare, wisdom of the public welfare. Then the theories associated with the actions, the type of actions as the deontological ethics. Deontological ethics theories are conceptualized by Immanuel Kant. Deontological ethics as the theory conceptualized by the Immanuel Kant, where the Kant conceptualized pronounces a concept called as categorical imperative, categorical imperative, categorical imperative, categorical imperative of Kant states that the universal value that exists in transcendental, it is a transcendental value which cannot be changed, with the people. Transcendental value that cannot be changed with the people. Honesty is same. You can be a honest or dishonest. You cannot be less honest or higher honest. A universal value that is applied to all. So ethical actions, action is ethic if it is concurred to the universal values. Kant states that there is no difference between the action and the end. There is no difference between mean and the end. If the mean is ethical, end is also ethical. If a mean is ethical, end is also ethical. If the end is getting qualified in the exam, but the mean is copying others, but getting passed in the exam is not ethical. Mean is copying others, but getting passed in the exam is not ethical. So it is the Kantian theory of deontological which considered that a ethical means will leads to the ethical end. It is not the end. End not justify the ethicality of an action. End not justify with the ethicality of an action. So the deontological approach in the public administration, is being applied with the ethicality of private distribution of the public resources, ethicality of distributing the public resources, the distribution of the public resources, ethicality of distribution of the public resources, in which distribution of the public resources could be seen with the policy of public-private partnership. Public-private partnership is an ethical means of privatization, of economic sectors and the critical sectors in India. Privatization of the economic sectors and the critical sectors in India. Then critical sectors in India. Then it is the utilitarian approach, or the utilitarian theories of the ethical evaluation. It is the utilitarian approach promoted by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, who promoted the idea, the concepts that promoted by Jeremy Bentham. That means who considered that the utility is survival. Utility is survival. Utility is for the survival of the humanity. But it is based on the principle of based on the principle of the pain and pleasure, pain and pleasure, pain and the pleasure, the ethicality has to assess on the proportion of the pain and the pleasure conferred to the people. The proportion of the pain and pleasure. A good state is one which creates least pain to the people. A good state is one, as the John Stuart Mill stated, a good state is one that creates least pain to the people. But it is stated based on the principle of maximum good. Any act of ethical one is to confer maximum good to the maximum number of people. Maximum good to the maximum number of people. Maximum good to the maximum number of people. At whatever means, the end is important. If the end delivered good, it is notwithstanding any mean that you applied, that is called as utilitarian approach. The utilitarian approach could be seen in India, could be seen in the public distribution system. The public distribution system, especially the universalization of PDS. Universalization of the PDS as an example. Then we have contractarian theories of ethical evaluation. Contractarian theories of ethical evaluation could be categorized with the Thomas Hobbes, the theory of Thomas Hobbes, where Thomas Hobbes viewed the society that stated that an individual is known for, an individual attitude is known for, an individual life is known for short, brutish, and selfish. Short, brutish, and selfish. The life of short, brutish, and selfish leads to the competition and greed. The nature of individual is of greed. Because every individual is tended with his life attitude of shortish, brutish, and the selfish. So there is a need of a state. A state of absolute powers. The state of absolute powers to restrict. And to regulate. A state of absolute powers to restrict and regulate. It is called as Leviathan state. Leviathan state is an absolute form of police state. A Leviathan state is an absolute form of the police state. It is a natural imbibed powers of the state to control the individual. The Leviathan character of the state in the 21st century, state of India, the Leviathan character of the state in the 21st century, that means how the Leviathan character, how the state power state power and what are the eminent domain of the state reflected in the enabling state, of the 21st century. The enabling state of the 21st century India, the 21st century state of India, to confront with the globalization, confront with the global market on the role of private, in which the state performed the role of enabling state as the dual character. One is, it enabled the free and fair role of the market, the free and the fair role of the market. Second, enabling state should have the character of conferring the fruits of the market to reach the vulnerable sections in the society. That means inclusiveness and the market liberalization are the two futures of the enabling state, in which how the enabling state to perform with the absolute powers of limitations and control, that is the Leviathan powers, that means in the form of regulatory institutions, regulatory institutions and enforcement agencies. Regulatory institutions and enforcement agencies. Regulatory institutions and enforcement agencies are ethical institutions to substantiate the characters of the enabling state, That is the contractarian theory of Thomas Hobbes. Then it was the contractarian theory of Thomas Hobbes. Then it was the contractarian theory of John Locke. John Locke theory of natural rights. John Locke theory of natural rights. John Locke theory of natural rights is somewhat different from Thomas Hobbes. John Locke criticized the Leviathan character. John Locke stated that the social contract between the state and the people, is not the outcome of people's greed. John Locke stated that it was the liberties, the people liberties are the core. The people liberties of the core, that means the right to liberty as the core, and the people have the right. The people have the right to resist the pain. People have the right to resist the pain, but the state is sovereign. That was the principles or the contractarian approach of evaluating the ethics. That seems to be a constructive balance. Between the liberties of the people and the state control of the society. Liberties of the people and the state controls on the society. That is the John Locke's theory of contractarian theory of the social, of the liberties. Then it was the Rousseau. It was the Rousseau. It was the Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It was the Rousseau's theory of the social contract. Rousseau's theory of the social contract, the theory of social contract, the theory of social contract of the Rousseau. Theory of social contract of Rousseau stated that the contract, it was an unsigned contract. It was an unsigned contract between the rulers and the ruled, 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 in which the people's will is the basis of the state. The people's will is the basis of the state. The basis of the state. And it was the people's right to revolt if the contract is broken. People's right to revolt if the contract is broken. And it is the individual liberties as the sanctified principles, So these were the philosophies of contractarians, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and the Rousseau. Then it was the theory of justice. The theory of justice by John Rawls. Theory of justice. John Rawls theory of justice. The John Rawls theory of justice is based on the principle of will. The principle of will, a state of governance, planners, leaders should act with the principle of will. That means their policies and decisions, are not considered, not related with their background, not considered with their social background, not considered with their social background, not considered with the social background, that their background of their social traditions, classes, then that is called as the principle or the theory of will. The theory of the will. Theory of will. Then the second one is the theory of will, followed by the reflective equilibrium. Reflective equilibrium is based on the decisions. Decisions of moment, prospective moment, decisions of the prospective moment, irrespective of the past, prospective moment, irrespective of the past. You should not expect the privilege that your past generations were persecuted. You have to think about the future, irrespective of the past, the decisions. Then the second one is applying the reflective equilibrium with the equality in political rights. Equality in political rights. equality in political rights, and differentiation in socio-economic rights, differentiation in socio-economic rights, equality in political rights, equality before law, and differentiation in the socio-economic rights. In case of dispute, in case of contradictions between equality and differentiation, it is the equality shall prevail. Equality shall prevail. So that seems to be the way of evaluating the act of social justice. Social justice, called as the theory of social justice by John Rawls. These were the different approaches of judging the ethicality of an action. Different approaches. One is different approaches in the form of theories. One is the virtue ethics. Then the second one is the deontological ethics. Then the utilitarian ethics. Then the contractarian ethics, as Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Rousseau. Then ethics of social justice. Ethics of social justice of John Rawls, based on the two principles. One is the principle of bail and the principle of reflective equilibrium. So this constitutes the approaches for the studies of ethics. What we studied today is the principles. Studied today is the principle of ethics. That is what we studied. That is ethics in private and the public relationship. Ethics in private and public relationship. Then the examination of the human values, role of family, educational institutions in the human values, role of family, educational institutions in the human values. What we studied is the factors determines the ethical actions. Second one is ethics in the public and the human values. Public and the human values. You see, it is believed that the adherence to the ethics in the human action would ensure the smooth functioning of an organization. If so, what does the ethics speaks in the human life? How do ethical value assist in the resolution of conflict in the day-to-day? Resolution of the conflict in day-to-day. What are the basic principles of the public life? What is public life? Public life operated with the informal system of relations, external mechanism of control. Public life is based on equity, reciprocity. What are the essential features of the public life? Illustrate any three of these suitable examples, essential principles of the public life. Essential principles, Nolan Committee highlighted the essential principles of the public life, and any of the principles. You see, crisis in the ethical values of the modern times trace to the narrow perception of the good life. traced to the narrow perception of the crisis of ethical values of the modern times. What are the ethical values of the modern times? What are the ethical values of modern times? The ethical values, materialism, consumerism, individual interests, that leads to crisis. That leads to the crisis. That means opposite to the vibrant society. A vibrant society is idealized with the justice, with the environmental stewardship, justice, environmental stewardship, and others, and the others. That is the that is not the others. Differentiate between the personal ethics and the professional ethics. Differentiate between the personal ethics and the professional ethics. You say the current 2014, current society is plagued with a widespread trust deficit. Any examples of the trust deficit? Any example? Example, leakage of question papers, building collapses, accidents. Okay. What are the consequences of this? It is vicious. It is vicious. What can you do at the personal level? The personal level, that means reinforcing the personal ethics in the personal life to the public. Then ARC Commission recommendations. ARC Commission recommendations. See, all human beings aspire for happiness. All human beings aspire for happiness. Eudaimonia, sumam bonum, aspire. Do you agree what happiness? Yeah, nethu paathom illaya. Which what do you understand by values and ethics? What do you understand by values and ethics? What do you understand by values and ethics? Ethics value is anchor or nanguram. Morality is code, compass, a direction. Ethics is system. Ethics is the system. Some people feels that the value keep changes with the time and situation, while others strongly believe that there are certain universal and eternal values. Some people feel the values keep changing with the time and situation. Values changes with the time and situations. The example is traditional values, present values. But notwithstanding the change in the values, there exists universality of values. Universal values are the human values. They are universal, transcendental, called by Immanuel Kant as the categorical imperatives. Give perception in this regard with the due justification. The way we discussed is our perception and justification. Why value change? We justified because of those factors. Because of those factors. Say, எழுத முடியுமா? Ethics paper 4 படிக்கிறது ஈஸி, எழுதுறது practice. Marks enormous. மற்ற பேப்பரை விட இந்த பேப்பர் தான். ஓகே ஓகே, see you in next class. ஸ்லைட்ஸ் அது வந்து போன கிளாஸ் ஸ்லைடு வந்து